We're going to get started here in just one moment, but before we do, if you'll be so kind as to confirm that you can both hear my voice as well as see my screen, which should say VooPlayer Q&A on it, and then we can get started. Thank you. We have some confirmations from Dean, Will, Sabira, Roger. So welcome everybody to the VooPlayer Q&A weekly webinar call. My name is Peter. I am VooPlayer's product manager. And as the name itself indicates, we're holding these calls in order to answer any questions that you as users may have, also to provide any training on advanced use cases of video in your business, as well as to showcase new stuff that we've been working on so that you can continue to extrapolate value out of VooPlayer, and also ultimately to gather any feedback, criticism, ideas, suggestions on how we can keep improving VooPlayer. The format of the webinar is pretty straightforward. So at any time that you have a question, or if you came prepared with any questions, just drop it here in this little chat box, and then we're just going to start answering them in the order that they come in. If you are, for whatever reason, unable to attend any of these webinar calls, weekly replays are available both on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/VooPlayer, as well as on our Facebook group, both of which are great resources to subscribe to in order to participate in the community if you haven't already done so. In addition to that, if you at any time have an idea for improvement or suggestions or criticism or something that can be fixed or improved, you are always more than welcome to welcome our ideas portal / ideas board, which is available in the application here. If you clicked on the little support icon over here, and then you can click on submit and vote on ideas, which will bring you to this portal where you are able to see stuff that we are currently working on, stuff that we are considering doing. The idea behind this is really for us to gather momentum on user contributed ideas for new modules, new features, new integrations. As you can see, for example, Drip is picking up momentum as a newly added integration thanks to all of the feedback which is coming in. So that's one of the things that we're considering doing, as well as you have the ability to see stuff that's been recently launched. And as I mentioned, you have the ability to submit an idea, indicate what kind of priority this carries for you, as well as to elaborate on your use case a little bit. And that way we can get it fitted on our roadmap and get it in front of other VooPlayer users so that they can contribute to it and gather momentum for us to be able to prioritize it. Also wanted to mention if anything ever pops up during these calls or at any time that you're using VooPlayer, as you probably already know, we are always available at support@VooPlayer.com or through our live chat widget, or let me just write that down in case anybody doesn't have it yet. So we're available through that as well. All right, excellent. I think that's all of the sort of housekeeping notes out of the way. Thank you all for taking the time to join this week. See some new faces, so welcome to everybody who are joining for this first time. As I mentioned, idea is really to get a conversation going between the users and our team. So if there are currently any issues or little niggles in your onboarding process with VooPlayer, or you're unsure how to cover your use cases, this isn't necessarily a strict question and answer session. You're more than welcome to outline what you're trying to achieve, and then you can get other people to contribute ideas on how you can get the best results using VooPlayer. And that's kind of the idea also behind the Facebook group as well. So a lot of times, if you haven't joined that group, I do encourage you to do so, as you will see a lot of people there say, hey, I'm trying to achieve so-and-so. Does anybody have any experience with that? And then there's going to be a lot of people trying to contribute different ideas in how you can achieve something in particular. All right, cool. So quick status update. So I did promise last week that we're going to review the funnels. Unfortunately, I'll have to disappoint and delay that until the next week. We are making good progress on that. It's just that the visual aspect of that builder, the dynamic interactions and the flow chart and all of that is proving to be a bit of a drag. But as mentioned, we're making good progress. So I don't want to say I promise, but I'll definitely do my best to get a demo of the reworked UI for the funnels in front of you guys next week, so that we can kind of gather some initial thoughts around how big of an improvement it is, just as far as the interactions go, as well as the structure, which allows for better flexibility of the funnels for what it accommodates. So that's kind of the main thing that we're focusing on. And as you know, also the Chrome extension for the application, making you browse for videos and grabbing the embed codes wherever you are on the internet, as well as the ability to record your screen and then create new videos that way. That's all packaged up and ready to be published on the Chrome Web Store. So we'll make some sort of a big announcement on that in the coming couple of weeks, as well as sort of integrate that within the UI itself as a new method for creating videos, so we can get even more people to use that. All right, so that's just a really quick high-level progress report. Wanted to see if there are any questions thus far. So Lewis is asking, is there any possibility of explaining this part of the support article entitled VooPlayer conversion process in less techno talk to understand it a little further? That's actually an excellent question that Lewis posted. Let me just get this article in front of me. And actually, let me open up Lewis sent in just a screenshot from the article. I'll open up the actual article just so we can have the full text in front of us. Conversion process is the article, I believe. Conversion servers. All right, so here we have the article, and let me just see if you highlighted a particular section. So after an upload, every video is first compressed in its original resolution. So that's starting around here, right? So there's really a lot that goes into this, but I'll try to explain it in as little technical jargon as possible. So you have a video which you want to upload to VooPlayer, and it really doesn't matter which format it is. It could be a MOV file, it could be an AVI file, it could be an MP4 file, it could be anything really. But basically, as soon as you upload it to the VooPlayer conversion server, two things happens. So the first thing that happens is it automatically gets converted to the most standardized format for the use of video online, which is the this codec, which is here, which basically equals to the most supported format of an MP4 file that exists. So regardless of what you upload, we convert it to that first, and we optimize it for web streaming in such a way that regardless if that file came from Camtasia or it came from you shooting a video with your camera, or it came from whatever the source is, we also optimize it in such a way that we make the streaming process as constant as possible by saying each segment of the streaming process will carry the same weight as far as bandwidth and as far as the consumption goes on the utilization of the client's resources, meaning that we treat all videos sort of as flat data structures as possible, meaning that the streaming is always going to be constant as is on the beginning as on the end. Now, depending on what you choose in VooPlayer when you're uploading a video, the process moving forward is pretty drastic from it differs pretty drastically from there onward. So you have one main option when you're uploading a file, and that's if you want to secure your video or if you don't want to secure your video. So securing your video is an option which determines if your file is going to stay in that most widely ranged supported format that there is, or if we're going to convert it to an HLS playlist. So what does that mean? So if we choose to convert it to an HLS playlist, that gives us much larger encryption capacities over the file itself. The MP4 file, the most supported format that there is great, and it streams well, and it's going to play almost everywhere seamlessly. However, it does not have the capacity for such deep encryption as the HLS playlist does, which you get by leaving this turned on. So if content security is not your foremost concern, it sometimes is recommended to just uncheck this and proceed, because and what I mean by content security is if you're not that worried about somebody downloading one of your videos and then repurposing it as their own content or abusing it in another way, then you're more than welcome to uncheck this. However, from what we found out from our user research, content security is one of the top priorities that our users have, which is one of the reasons of why this is turned on. So if this is turned on, as I said, that most widely supported format goes into another format, which is then encrypted. It allows us to put together several layers of protection around it, meaning that even if somebody manages somehow to download those video segments, then they can't be decrypted without VooPlayer's interference. So I think that level of security that we impose on those files is unmatched by any other player online. I think several security experts have tried to use different softwares, different techniques for parsing that encryption, and I think nobody thus far has really been able to download and successfully decrypt those files, making them, I think, the most secured format that there is for protecting your original content. The downside of that is that sometimes that format can hit a snag, or it can be not supported on a particular device. And we do our best to foresee those extreme outline edge cases where the format might not be supported, and then kind of try to do a polyfill and kind of decrypt the process in the stream itself. So sometimes there can be some niggles with this, but the trade-off of security versus playability is not one that's easy for somebody to make. So we try our best to kind of mitigate those edge cases. So that's the next decision that happens in the conversion process: is this file going to be secured, or is it not going to be secured? So regardless of if you chose you want to have a secured file or not, you wound up with sort of the base format for your video. So for example, if you uploaded a resolution video which was in 4K, for example, that's that base format. Whatever is the resolution that you uploaded, that's the base format. And the next step then is really for us to optimize those resolutions into lower formats for optimized streaming speeds for lower connection users. So if you, as in the example outlined here, if you uploaded a 4K file, we'll convert it to a full HD, to an HD ready, and a 360p format video. And then so basically your one uploaded file now has 4 versions of itself, which are readily available for streaming on different devices, or I should rather say on different connection speeds. So if the incoming connection speed to that stream is 12 megabits or higher, then the 4K is going to be streamed. If it's between 5 megabits and 3 megabits per second, then the 720 is going to be streamed. And if it's below 3 megabits per second, then the 360p resolution is going to be streamed. And not to get into all of the settings which you have inside of WooPlayer, but you can control if you want always the highest resolution to play, and then you can kind of request additional resolutions in some cases, and then you can delete some resolutions. Depends on what you want to do. If there are some really specific use cases which you're trying to cover with this, it might be best to just reach out at support@woolplayer.com and sort of explain to us what you're trying to achieve, and then maybe we can preset some smart settings around what you want to do. And the final option, which is really available as a variation to all of this, as if it was not as complex enough, is the ability to use 2-pass conversion. And 2-pass conversion is only available for the secured format, because as mentioned, the non-secured videos are downright supported everywhere, and always have a very, very good ratio of quality versus performance. So there's not much additional that needs to be done there. However, with secured videos, with those HLS playlists, sometimes there can be a wacky relationship between optimizing performance in favor of quality, and vice versa. So the 2-pass conversion is basically, it goes over the entire stream twice. So it basically takes as twice much of a time for it to be optimized, but you, I believe, in this manner get the best results in comparison of performance to quality. So that's something that we also recommend doing if upload time is not that big of a factor on your end. So let me just see if there's any follow-ups to what I was just talking about. So Lewis is saying, I think you mentioned before about it not being best practice to have no more than one. I think you mentioned it before about not being best practice to have no more than one embedded player or any page, and maybe related to the conversion process. That would have nothing to do with it. Well, with WooPlayer, and especially with the beta optimized, let me just see where that is. With the beta optimized publish code, beta performance optimized publish code, you can have as many different videos as you want to have embedded on one page. Now that's a matter of user experience that you want to achieve. But I think I was more talking about, I can't remember, but every now and then we would get somebody who embeds 100 or 200 videos on one page, and then when all of them start being streamed, all of a sudden there's weird performance issues on the client side, and of course there would be with 10 or 20 different videos streaming at one time. So I think my suggestion on that was nothing to do with the conversion process itself, but it was more only to do with the client performance of the player. Could you explain why this is again, please, for a different reason, and does it apply if I instead link to a pop-up videos that displayed and hovered above content on the same page? Again, this has nothing to do with the conversion process itself. It's my suggestion. I can't remember that conversation, but from my experience, those recommendations are usually based on having multiple video streams loaded over one page, and usually 2 or 3 are not going to be that worrisome, again, pending the client resources capabilities. But if you have 10 videos and somebody's always clicking on them and they're streaming and they're loading and buffering and are consuming the memory of that client, you can have some really troublesome experiences which are best avoided. So my recommendation was honestly that of you trying to format the best possible user experience by only presenting one video at a time in front of a viewer, similar to how YouTube or a Vimeo or any other platform might do it. You're never going to see multiple videos side by side, but rather one video at a time. All right, so that took us off on a little bit of a tangent, but let's see if we can get to some other questions as well. Roger is asking, can you do a verbal update on funnel features? So there are not necessarily that many different features. It's really taking all of the features which were previously inside of funnels and laying them down in a different manner. So the biggest difference that there is that funnels no longer have questions. So funnels now have what we're referring to as steps. So steps are big, and a question can be a step. So steps can be of different types. You can have steps which are questions. You can have steps which are lead forms. You can have steps which are redirects. You can have steps which are new videos, etc., etc., etc. The reason for that is for really allowing a more flexible dynamic between those steps. So no longer is an on-finish action. Previously in funnels, on-finish was always you're either going to have a lead form or you're not going to have a lead form. Now with this sort of a step structure, you can say, hey, step 1 can finish with a lead form, but step 7 can go to a different page, and step 10 can finish with whatever. So that's sort of the main difference. Is that now, as I've talked about previously, and I really want to have a visual in front of you guys for discussing this, because it can get confusing. But when in current funnels, you had a strict hierarchical structure of nested steps, or rather questions under answers for a previous question, which was underneath previous answer, etc., etc., etc. And you'll really see when I show you the visual for how this is laid out now, is that no longer is anything underneath anything. So there is no hierarchy anymore. Everything is a flat structure, allowing you to connect anything to anything else, making it much dynamic for covering different use cases, such as quizzes, such as dynamic flows, etc., etc., etc. I could go into more of a sort of a verbal description of everything, but I really want to get a visual in front of you guys. So I do thank you for your understanding and patience on delaying that demo for you guys until next week. Stefano is saying, if WooPlayer converts the video into optimal file size format, is still worth using Handbrake? Thanks. Absolutely. There's how should I put this? So Camtasia, for example, is a known culprit for us when it comes to troublesome video files, and that happens because Camtasia thinks, and rightly so, is that they are producing the final format that is going to be used online, and they do so in a smart way, where they treat different segments of the same file with different bandwidth capabilities. So it has what's referred to as a variable bit rate, for example. So that means that different parts of the video are going to be consuming different parts of the resources based on the visual intensity and activity of the images in those particular segments. So however, when that comes to us and we want to optimize it in a constant bit rate, that can sometimes cause conflicts. So that's why we always recommend to have some sort of a preparation cycle, and that can be both done on our end in coming up with some tools. I think it's been discussed many times over on having some sort of a plugin or sort of presets available for Camtasia users, for Premiere users, for Avid users, etc., on the best export settings. However, until we reach that point where we're ready to make those plugins and presets available, our recommendation remains to use some of the most basic settings in the Handbrake for web optimization. And I think in Handbrake, let me see if I have it in front of me. Handbrake, I do. So where did that open? Did that open? Let me just double check. Handbrake. All right, there we go. So if I'll just open up a sample file. Let's see, videos, and let me see if I have something a bit more complicated than these. I don't know what this is. Let's take a look at this file. So if we take a look at this file, it seems like it's one of the more complicated ones, so that's good. So it's going to scan the entire file and try to understand the settings which were embedded in when creating it, and give you the list of everything that's happening. So our recommendation sometimes is to simply just come here and select any of the presets which are available. So for example, you can say, hey, give me this 720p with 30 keyframes per second, and that produces really constant results in VooPlayer, for example. And I think there's an article on here, and I'll share this with you on optimizing, I think it's called optimizing your files for upload or something like that. Optimizing videos for web, which goes into the details around why you should and how you should optimize your videos before uploading them. So sometimes it's hard to battle against those pre-made settings, but sometimes we do a good job at it. But there's such a level of different factors and variables which can come into how a video is encoded, what kind of a data is in it, that's almost impossible to create one workflow which will work for all of the different formats, which is why we recommend some sort of a standardization on the input itself and what you can bring to the upload as an optimized process. All right, let me see if I skipped anything else up here. Demore is saying, if I'm not mistaken, didn't support say that HLS doesn't play well in Safari? So yeah, that's one of the conflicts, and then that's that situation where I mentioned we try to do sort of a polyfill decode of the stream, which makes it a little bit harder to decode, but not fully. So there's a lot that goes into that. Lewis is also saying, regarding last week's conversation on funnels, I created a couple of images to show what I believe both Dean and I were suggesting for different possible outcomes. So let's take a look at those screenshots. Thanks a lot for taking the time to do that, Lewis. So let's take a look here. So we have a start point and a question: do you want to find out more about ShareGates? With a couple of answers which are yes and no. And if somebody answers yes, this goes to another video. And if somebody answers no, that goes to the previous question, and then you're sort of in a loop. So this flow with the yes question. So somebody answered yes, that went to the new video, and it comes back to the question. The viewer is returned to the main video at the point just after the question was asked, as there are no other options. That makes sense. So I think in this scenario, if I understand this correctly, if somebody answers no, they just stay where they are, right? So if somebody just clicks on no, there's no further action needed, so they just stay at the same spot. Whereas if somebody answered yes, they would watch the new video and come back to the question where I think at this point they're just stuck at the question, or do they just continue going till what's F? That's what's confusing me. Maybe we can get some clarification around what F is. Let me just see if we have another screenshot. We do. So do you want to find out more about gates? Yes. Email gates? Yes. Password gates. So those all go into their individual new videos, leading into going back into the question. When answering yes, the viewers return to the main video back at the same question, as there are other options they may wish to see before continuing on the timeline. Only when they answer no does the main video continue. Oh, all right, I get now. So answering no continues the video. Only when they answer no does the main video continue at this point past the question. Yeah. This is definitely a structure which is well supported within our new envisioned funnels. So this would be really to do, because all of these are sort of individual steps in our foreseen layout of the data for funnels, and it would make it really easy to do that. So really glad that we had these screenshots just as a clarification. Lewis can relate to. Sorry about that. I was trying to close Lewis's screenshot, but I ended up closing the webinar window. Let me just get the screen back. There we go. All right, cool. So yes, that structure is well supported within what we wanted to do. Roger is saying, can you pipeline with the steps? Great, thank you. I think I answered that question. Can VooPlayer convert a CAF file? I'm not even familiar. What is a CAF file? Let's find out. Let's learn something new today. CAF file is an audio file format. No, it cannot. VooPlayer can work well with MP3s, for example, as far as audio files are concerned, but that's about it. And even that is somewhat sketchy. So our recommendation is always to upload videos to VooPlayer, even though officially MP3s are supported. All right. Lewis is saying time up, I guess, and time is running. We did run out of time. We're a bit over the half-hour mark. That's how much we're allocating to this. But sometimes it's good to continue the conversation. So unless there are any final questions, I want to thank everybody for joining this week, and thank Lewis for providing a great topic for discussion with regards to the conversion as well as the funnels structure. Hopefully, we'll see you next week and continue improving Wool Player. Thank you, everybody. Have a great remainder of this week. Bye.